everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Philly Sports Convo. This is my podcast where I get to talk to the coolest people in Philly sports, and my guest tonight, in my mind, is one of the most versatile broadcasters out there. He's the radio voice of the Union. He's the TV voice of the New York Riptide and the National Lacrosse League. He does more sports than I think I can count. He's a hell of a nice guy, and he's a great friend on top of that. Happy to have Dave Leno today. Dave, good to see you, pal. How are you?
Jason, thanks so much for having me on. Congratulations on this new venture. It's an honor to be a part with all of your talented guests, and you're the cool cat, man. I'm just along for the ride. I'll bat second in your lineup any day.
You're a nice guy, Dave, but whenever I'm with you, I'm just a sidecar on the motorcycle, buddy. That's it. You know?
Hey, I'm that guy riding shotgun, man. You're the one driving the ship, and I'm just here with you. But it's an honor, and you're a legend in the Philadelphia market and beyond. And
the check is in the mail, man.
I was going to say I'll slip you a $20 bill after the interview too.
Hey, I wore my Union jersey just for you. Okay.
I love it, man. Listen, for our playoff run, we need you to come in and score some goals at Cincinnati in our Eastern Conference semifinal upcoming. So if you can help us out, I'll get you on the charter plane.
Well, believe me, if the team is turning to me, they're in bad shape. But I want to talk about the Union now. Just a caveat here. So we're recording this before the Cincinnati game, but it's not going to run until after the Cincinnati game, so we can't talk about that. But I want to look back to last season and that remarkable run to the MLS Cup Finals. What's it like for a broadcaster? Now, I know JP was still the main play-by-play guy, the legendary JP Delamea. You were doing mainly pre, post, halftime. You did some play-by-play, but you're a broadcaster for the team. What was it like for you guys throughout that playoff run?
Well, they set so many records last year, like most goals. They were undefeated at home. And the Union, just to put in context for anybody out there watching this that hasn't really followed the Union since the club's inception in 2010, from 2020 during the Supporter Shield era, during the COVID year, we won our first trophy in club history, which was the top record across the league. And that was in 2020. 2021, still battling COVID, we go to the Eastern Conference final, but more than half of our starters got COVID or were out due to health and safety.
I remember that, yeah.
The final. So then it brings us quickly to your question. Last year, we get over that hump. We do beat New York City FC in the Eastern Conference final at home. We lose after having the lead twice, and we lost an MLS Cup, which is our championship, in penalties or on penalty kicks at LAFC. So the run last year in totality was remarkable. So many guys had career years, in particular guys that play in our attack, our number 10, which is our attacking midfield position. Daniel Gazdag, Michael Uwa up top is a forward for the team coming from Denmark, and the same with Julian Carranza up top. So those three in particular were the best trifecta across the league, not to mention we have arguably the best goalkeepers, Jason, and Andre Blake, a Jamaican international, meaning he stars for Jamaica for their national team.
And what do you call him? You call him Brick Wall Blake, right? I've heard you say that.
Brick Wall Blake. Yeah. I try to get that in when appropriate, at least once or twice on a call. He's the linchpin back there for this team. It's not just him, but the back line, Jacob Glesnes, Jack Elliott, Kai Wagner when he's played on the left, whether it's been Olivier Bizo or Nate Harriel on the right. So what I'm getting at is it's really been a collective effort by this team, and that's a testament to our coach, who's a Philly guy through and through, and Jim Curtin, our sporting director or GM, like in other sports is the equivalent, sporting director Ernst Tanner, and the entire staff. And for me, just to play a little part in that, and calling not just the Eastern Conference semifinal where we beat Cincinnati last year, and the Eastern Conference final where we beat New York City FC, who won the championship in 2021. That was a really big deal for me, starting with the team from 2016 up until that point. So it was a heck of a run in 2022. I can tell you that. They still want to win MLS Cup in 2023. That is the goal moving forward.
So I mentioned JP Delamea. I want to ask you about him because I think you're like me. I have an appreciation for the true greats in our industry, and I consider him one of the true greats. And he was with the Union from day one. And tell me if you agree with this. I think when a team is brand new and soccer hadn't worked in this town before the union came along. And I think part of the reason the union caught on as much as they did, and you get so many rabid fans at Subaru Park now, is because JP Dellacamera was doing the games from day one. I think the broadcaster is that important when you're dealing with a new market, a new sport. Give me your thoughts on JP, what he meant to the union, and I guess what he meant to you as well.
JP's a legend. That was arguably the union's best signing right from day one in the broadcast booth, tapping him as a play-by-play guy for the team, the voice of the team. And it was a very special opportunity for me to be a part of the broadcast with JP. Learned so much from him. Here's a guy that's done so many World Cups on both the men's and the women's side. And JP, the way I can go through the minutia of just broadcasting, the way he calls a game, presents himself. First and foremost, he's a people person, just like you, just like me. He treats everybody with respect. He's a guy that says hello to everybody in the room, regardless of your position. When he puts on the headset, even really before that, he wants the show not to be about him, but he wants to do the best he can for everybody involved. That's for people in the production truck or the production cavity, to the cameramen, the camera women who are with us, or a statistician or a stage man in the booth. To me, if I was tossing to him during the pregame show for hits or in the postgame show or him throwing to me at halftime live, we had this special bond. And if there's one really sad thing with MLS going behind a paywall for their TV broadcasts, so no more local TV, and now on Apple TV, it's losing the camaraderie that we all had. We still talk, JP, and we were texting and emailing leading up to him doing the World Cup this year, and I know we had a great run for the Women's World Cup. And I will say that if it wasn't for a guy like JP that made me feel comfortable, I don't know if I'd be in the shoes I am now with the union as the radio voice of the team, or how well that I transitioned from doing in 2016 Bethlehem Steel FC, which was our minor league team, our USL team. For those that don't know, think of the AAA team of Union. Now they have a team called Union 2, which is our developmental team. So there's no more Bethlehem Steel, but I was the voice of that team. And JP treated me with such class, coming on for the first time, and then me doing that, and then having a role with the first team with the Union, doing pregame, halftime, and then later on postgame. He helped me a lot with preparation, how to present soccer the best way possible for the Philadelphia audience, but also for the national audience as well, and the difference of how maybe he presented a game when he did a game for the Union in the Philadelphia market, different from when he does a national game when he would step into playoff games or national games during the regular season for Fox. So for me, I read a lot about this, and I follow other younger men and women following a legend like JP, and there's many other examples like Joe Davis following Vin Scully. And you can take other examples.
Tom McCarthy following Harry Callis,
Harry Callis, and it's not easy. And
no,
nobody will ever replace JP. I will not. I'm very fortunate to still be a part of the club and to call the games. But JP forever will be the voice of the Philadelphia Union, and it was an honor to share the broadcast booth or the broadcast set with him. I remember, Jason, just the last one here, when we were signing off for good, and it was very, very emotional. It was just myself and JP on the set above Section 113.
I remember that. I was watching.
Yeah, yeah, live signing off on the broadcast, and I turned it over to him and just stood there and just shut up and let him give all his thoughts. And we honored him at a banquet in April of 2023 during a Union Foundation banquet. It's not just the man that he is, I think, stands out. I know he's an accomplished broadcaster, but it's the gentleman that he presents himself as, something that I continue as a young broadcaster. Hopefully, as the years go by, I know I will be hopefully a couple ounces of what JP possesses moving forward.
Well, anytime I asked JP for a favor, anytime I asked him to come on a show I was doing, you, the guy never said no.
Right.
He was always there, and just a hell of a nice guy. And if anybody could have an ego, he could, but he doesn't. And that's one of the things I loved about the guy. I want to get back to talking about you and your career. And you mentioned JP on national TV. You've done your fair of national TV as well. You've done a lot of work for ESPN. Do you? I guess I'll just ask it as basic as I can. Do you get nervous on national television? The entire country's watching. Are there any extra nerves when you're doing a broadcast like that?
I think anytime you put on the headset, I at least my opinion, I think anybody's telling you they don't get nervous might be lying a little bit. And I think
I agree.
Look, I think the difference is it's like you can control the chaos in your body, in your belly, in your diaphragm, whatever you want to say. But once that red light goes on, it's like I'm talking to you right now. You feel comfortable. You're amid friends. When I'm looking to a camera during a live open, if I did a game for ESPN, is it anything different than I looked into a live camera when I did Philadelphia Union or New York Riptide or an MSG? Maybe you think about it, but then if you believe in the preparation that you did, if you have good chemistry with the analyst, which my background, that's one of the most paramount things for me is having who I'm working with shine. It's not about me as the play-by-play guy or if I did hosting. I'm the small part in the play, and that little clarinet player I was in fourth grade. Everybody pokes fun at me. I was last year.
So you played the clarinet?
Yeah, played the clarinet. There was a big assembly in fourth grade, and that's just the musicality coming out of the clarinet. I liked, but
you want to laugh?
Anyway,
I played the cello in fourth, fifth, and sixth. The damn thing was bigger than I was.
Yeah, it's insane. I could not play that thing, so I give you props for that. Maybe I'll get lessons after this from you. I'm starting to strum the guitar a little bit now.
There you go. There you go.
Taking after my dad a little bit, but look, you're doing a game for ESPN. You know what's cool is hearing the music that you grow up listening to, the den. Like I can go
right.
I mean, even like I remember my first live toss to like an ESPN studio for halftime. Like that still gets me giddy just now talking about it. Like, let's go to Kevin Connors back in the ESPN studio for our Taco Bell halftime report. Kevin, all yours. And then he just goes, and then it's like, and then the producer goes on your headset, says, all right, you're all clear till the end of halftime. That's really cool. I've worked with a lot of really neat people that have made it, pretty big and full time at ESPN as analysts. I'll give you one anecdote. I remember doing an NIT game, GW, so George Washington against Hofstra, and I did the game with Craig Robinson. Now, for those that don't know who Craig Robinson is, he formerly coached on many stops, played at Princeton, formerly coached Oregon State in men's college basketball.
Okay.
Who's Craig Robinson to most people? Well, other than the coach, and I believe he's still with the Knicks organization in their personnel department, one of the heads of that. I think now actually might be running, as I'm thinking about it, one of the basketball like coaching associations. Craig is Barack Obama's brother-in-law, Michelle Obama's brother.
Wow.
So I remember I remember doing a game with Craig. And Craig's like, hey, do you mind after shoot around dropping me off where I'm staying? And I'm thinking, okay, I'm staying at like the Palomar in DC, right? So he goes, he puts in the address and whatever. And of course it was the White House.
No way.
Staying in the residences. And
did they invite you in?
Cool. No, so there's no cool story like that.
Man.
I wish there was, and I wish I'd give you some Edgar Allan Poe spiel about how it was nice being in there.
But you dropped him off at the White House.
Just dropped me on the periphery right there. But it was just like, and then the next night where we actually had the NIT game, they showed one of the shots of the White House coming back, and we didn't tell Craig. I was like, all right, so welcome back to our nation's capital. And Craig, which room did you stay in last night?
Nice.
It was, we had some fun with that. But a lot of other accomplished broadcasters did a Memphis Texas A&M game last year on a Saturday night at FedEx Forum where the Grizzlies play with John Crispin, who's a star analyst with ESPN, Dalen Cuff, who's all over ESPN Bet, Perry Clark, former coach of Miami and Tulane. I did a host of games with Tim Welsh as well, former head basketball coach, and others. So whether I've done games on ESPN3 on the digital side or .com when I first got in 2012. So I can remember my first game, Houston Temple, on ESPN News at the time in 2016, to doing an ESPN2 last year at East Carolina with the aforementioned Perry Clark on Martin Luther King Day. I really, Jason, I know this is I don't like to use cliches, but I think you know me, my prep, and for those that don't, I really take all my prep very seriously. I treat all those games the same, regardless if it's local TV or national, whether it's with a bigger ESPN crew or a smaller ESPN crew. I do all these big spotting boards, charts, and that's what gets me comfortable.
You just reminded me of something that I forgot about. I wanted to ask you to have one of the spotting boards handy, but look up Dave Leno on social media at Dave Leno TV. You will see pictures. I mean, because Dave, and you and I have talked about this on TV and off TV before, that I don't know. I don't know how you, because the spotting board, it's made so when you're doing a broadcast, you can look down and right away get some kind of a factoid about a player. I don't see how you, how was that legible? I mean, how did you do it? There's a lot going on.
Listen, it's like people make fun of it. That probably my 8th grade art teacher, Mrs. Russell, doesn't like it either.
But it gets the job done.
Yeah, I don't have one handy. I'm sorry about that now, but but names, numbers, bios, what we're talking about, like saying I went to Indiana, for example. Dave went to Indiana. He studied broadcast journalism, for example. Like that would be on a border. And then obviously, if I'm doing college basketball, it would be a lot of basketball things where they went to high school. Maybe there's something that the coach told me during shoot around, or the sports information director told me during the week, or something, a note or a nugget I picked up in the game notes, or an article that I read from our great journalists around the country. I'll add that, and I'll hopefully I get to talk to a couple players when I travel to a game. And that's not just for basketball. That's if I've done college football in the past. I remember I did, for the first time, I did the ACC Swimming and Diving Championships 2 years ago in Atlanta, Georgia, where they hosted the '96 Olympics. And you're talking about, I don't know how many ACC schools there were. Let's just say there were like 12 or 13 of them that had swimming and diving programs. And I had to go into, not just bio information of everybody who could qualify for like the A final, which is the one that you medal for, that would count towards the standings. And then they have the B final, C final for those that just make the next kind of tier. And you got to research all these people. And I would leave the hotel, go to kind of like the Reading terminal of Atlanta, like the Pond City Market, I think it was called. Sit there with a coffee, go through all these student athletes and watch a ton of film on how the Olympics presented. How did ESPN present it the year before, going 2 years ago? What makes a great swimming and diving broadcaster? Also talking with people who have done it. A lot of people go, yeah, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, this is what makes you so good at what you do, because you put the prep in, you put the time in. I mean, and I talked at the top about your versatility, all the different sports you've done. You just mentioned swimming and diving. I remember watching, I think it was ESPNU, and you were doing a college softball game. So how many different sports have you done on TV and radio?
Gosh, a lot. I'll start with this. The most simple way I can put it is the first game I ever called on national TV was when I was a senior at Indiana, and it was on the Big Ten Network doing Ohio State, Indiana field hockey. And I tell this to a lot of young broadcasters is even if it's a sport that you don't love, and I didn't know much about field hockey, but I really appreciate it now. I love it.
Yeah.
Don't say no to that opportunity. And that was given to me, I think, in large part because I worked my tail off at Indiana as a student. I traveled around with the volleyball and the softball teams my junior and senior year as an announcer. We made the Sweet 16 in volleyball, made an NCAA regional in softball right after. As I graduated, I stayed a week later to call that game, Mizzou, then came back home and tried to jumpstart my career post-graduation. And The thing I remember about that Indiana Ohio State field hockey game is I went to the coach, Amy Robertson, at the time from Indiana, like 3 or 4 weeks out when I got the assignment, and said, "Listen, I've never done field hockey before. I'm going to do a great job, but if there's any, if I could come and watch practice a day or two in between classes, talk with you, talk with a couple student athletes about the game." She gave me Olympic. She said, "Absolutely." So you got to be very proactive.
Right,
You have
right.
to get her personality. And she gave me Olympic DVDs that hosted that had field hockey at the Olympics. So I learned how the announcers did it at the Olympics. Watched a ton of video online. Obviously, went to practices and talked with people. And then I did the game. And where that got me to, from 2015 to 2019, the U.S. Women's National Team was training in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, at Spooky Nook Sports Complex. And I was tabbed as a national field hockey announcer every time the U.S. Women's National Team would play all the top countries in the world. I drove from the Philadelphia area, where I'm from, all the way out to Lancaster.
Right.
Was not put up in a hotel. Been asked to be, and not that it's far, but did the games. I would call games against the top countries in the world, like Argentina, the Netherlands, Germany, India, China. I mean, I did the Pan American Games, featuring, Chile, as mentioned, Argentina, and others from down south. And those experiences, it's not a sport for everybody, but I love that. I've done two Sun Belt Conference volleyball championships in the Sun Belt. That was in 2012 and 2013. That's going back a little. But if I wasn't a student broadcaster at Indiana, I wouldn't have got those opportunities. And then I've done college football with ESPN, basketball. I've done college soccer with ESPN, obviously MLS with the Philadelphia Union as well, in addition to other sports.
I get the feeling that you and I are similar in that I never turned down anything. I don't think you turned down anything either.
Not a lot. Not a lot. I mean, obviously, one big thing I didn't mention is I'm a really big tennis guy. I mean, I play a lot of tennis.
Okay, you know what? Can I ask you a question about that? You just made me think of something.
Yes.
So you did, what was it? Was it the U.S. Open that you just did?
Yep.
Okay, you did it on radio.
Yes.
Now most people aren't used to hearing tennis on the radio. You watch tennis.
Very difficult.
Right. You watch tennis on TV. And it's, the announcers really don't talk. They just talk, while the volley's going on. Obviously, they're not going to say anything because, the picture is telling the story. But on radio, you have to be the eyes of the people listening. So there's a lot more talking. There's a lot more description. And I remember listening to you on Sirius when you were doing that tournament. And it seemed odd to me at first because I wasn't used to hearing a broadcast like that. But then I'm like, wait a second, he has to do it like that. And I had never heard tennis on the radio before, but man, you did a damn good job.
I appreciate it. It is so fast. If nobody's ever heard tennis on the radio, it kind of has the tenor of an ice hockey call.
Yes, exactly.
To a Flyers game, as Tim Saunders would say, Jason to Dave across the blue line puts it. So it has that kind of fast pace. And my union calls that I do down MLS on the radio, they're pretty quick too. It depends, obviously, when we're going into the attacking third and there's an imminent goal scoring opportunity, you get into it a little bit more rather than passes out of the back, for example, with our defenders. But for tennis, now it helps, as I said, I play a lot of tennis. Growing up, took lessons, played a little bit, doing some club stuff at Indiana. And actually, I got a lot better actually coming back from school from Indiana to the Philadelphia area and just around broadcasting. I've just played it with friends and a public court tennis player, not a country club guy by any means, but enrolled in tournaments and USTA teams. And those are kind of teams across your various cities. For example, Philadelphia would have a team, or you could be, I was part of one in Levittown or one in Doylestown. And so there's many different teams that you can be a part of if you're a part of the United States Tennis Association. So that's a little bit of background there. And since 2013, I've worked a variety of roles at the U.S. Open, which has been kind of amazing because that's our grandest spectacle as far as American tennis events go. I know everybody think Wimbledon is amazing. I have a dream one day to broadcast at Wimbledon and hopefully the Aussie Open and also at Roland Garros, the French Open. But
it'll happen.
But doing Yeah, I hope so, man. And I would say that doing the U.S. Open and seeing fans come from around the world and staying from, I'm there from qualifying till the end of the main draw, which is amazing. I'm there for 3 weeks, so I see players trying to fight, win 3 matches in a row on both the men's and the women's side in singles to just get into the main draw, where you have to win 7 matches in basically 2 weeks to win the Grand Slam. So I've called Federer in the past, Nadal, Djokovic, as recently as Carlos Alcaraz losing in the semifinals this year to Daniil Medvedev. That was amazing. Obviously, Novak Djokovic has just been amazing. That's a whole different storyline there, which is
Right.
he's done coming back from having not played. But calling tennis to me, when I go back and listen to my work, I'll close my eyes and say, did I describe this accurately? Was I on top of the play? But that goes not just for tennis, but doing soccer, or when I've done baseball, or if I'm in a hosting role, is how smoothly and accurately am I at the game calling it. And for tennis, it's just, I think it's because it's so niche, kind of like field hockey, like even softball, which has a different speed than baseball, much, much faster. You're getting done a college softball game in an hour, 20, an hour and 30, which is honestly great for everybody
Yeah.
involved. But for tennis, it's I'm sticking with the nuts and bolts though of play by play. So Jason's decked out in a Nike kit. He straddles the baseline, rocks back a good toss 2 feet in the air, smacks the racket, goes into the deuce side of the court. Leno takes it belt high, forehand down the line. Jason scoots left, has it knee high, whisks the ball up ahead over the high part of the net, down the line. Dave with a backhand slice. So, but then it's a lot quicker as I'm trying to go slower so everybody can hear what I'm saying. And then I'm trying to how I judge how I get better is number one, am I describing everything accurately? Am I using tennis terminology? Am I staying on top of the play? I'm not just saying forehand, backhand, backhand. And over time, as the tournament moves on, I find myself even more comfortable where I can talk about, what kind of topspin the player uses. Is it a backhand that's from an open stance or a closed stance? So I go into more detail, and
Right.
it's again very niche for a tennis audience. But this is something I'm very proud of doing. And I was in, a lot of people don't know, I've worked with Billie Jean King in the past doing World Team Tennis, which is on hiatus right now. But I was in 2 COVID bubbles in 2020 at the Greenbrier in West Virginia when nothing was going on. We had tennis in the summer where men and women competed on the same team. It's a league that Billie Jean and her then husband co-founded in the 70s, and all the greats played in World Team Tennis. And I was the PA voice or the MC on court for the Philadelphia team, the Philadelphia Freedoms, that
Right.
Chic, and also the New York Empire. And then I did it for the league, both at the Greenbrier in 2020 and also in 2021 in Indian Wells, California. So it attests to not saying no to a lot of opportunities and just putting yourself out there, and hopefully somebody likes your work.
There you go. In the last couple of minutes, I got to ask you a couple of stories, okay? We're running out of time, but I see on social media every week you and your wife and your son make challah, and it looks
Yes.
fantastic. And I want to know if somehow I can get that recipe and try it myself.
Well, you can absolutely get the recipe. It is not hard to do, but I think with anything, it's just
Is it hard to
repetition.
wind it up, like to twist it?
Yes.
Okay.
In the beginning, yes. And I still find myself like going back, like how I braid it is what Jason's talking about, like a 3-strand challah. So I try to do this a lot on Fridays for Shabbat. The Jewish community watching will know a lot about that. And, I took up bread making during, everybody had like a little hobby during COVID or
Sure.
something they just fascinated with. How I've done way before COVID. But bread was definitely one of them. Growing a starter was very, very difficult. That's kind of your natural leavener that allows the bread to rise without putting like that active yeast in.
Right.
Now for the challah, I don't do that. That's kind of sourdough bread, and that's a different topic.
Got it.
But for challah, there's a lot of patience. You absolutely can get the recipe, and I have it. And anybody wants it, they can get in touch with me.
All right.
Happy to share the challah knowledge with everybody.
This is probably a dumb question, but I'll ask it anyway. Have you ever tried challah French toast? It's outstanding.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, okay. Of course, it's outstanding. All right, I want to get one more thing in. I read
Yes.
that you proposed to your wife at Channel 6 at 6 ABC. And if you can, and give me like the Cliff's Notes version, because we've got like a minute or so left. Give me the quick version.
Quick version's this. We were doing a lot of work at 6 ABC through the Philadelphia Union, where we did all of our road broadcasts. We didn't travel at the time as a broadcast team, so I would do either pregame, halftime, postgame, or if I stepped in and did play-by-play for JP,
Right.
We would do from Channel 6. So just being there, getting to know everybody, was an amazing experience in itself. Now I get to travel, which is amazing, although I miss a lot of the 6 ABC people. And my wife, Tori, now, when I was on the brink of proposing, I wanted to do something creative. I remember doing trying to think I think it was a college basketball game in Alabama, of all places, in Jacksonville, Alabama. I think it was a Belmont-Jacksonville State game. And I think I said to Tori's sister, Sloan, like, I'm thinking about proposing at one of the Philadelphia restaurants. And she's like, that's great, whatever. But, can we think of something more creative? Because Tori would like that. And then every time I would go to Tori's parents' house, 6 ABC would always be on. Her parents would watch the news. Tori likes Adam Joseph. She likes all the crew. Oh, I always see Jim Gardner in the background, or Jamie Apodi, or Deuces.
So tell me how it happened. I want to know.
So, I went to the 6 ABC folks. Went to Bernie, their station president, and just flat out asked. I'm here, doing work with the Philadelphia Union. Tori, I said the whole story, which I just shared. It was always on at Tori's house. I think if there's ever a time where the studio's not available, or the studio's open where they're not having a broadcast, can I come in and do this quick thing? And I remember going to dinner first. I was nervous as hell. I brought Tori to 6 ABC I said to Tori, I'm picking up my badge for the season to get in. That was the decoy there, Jason, if you can follow me. Picking up my badge to get in the door.
Right.
So a producer let us in. The producer was on at the time. Paula was her name, who I think now is an Emmy Award winner in NBC 10 as an executive producer. So shout out Paula Lopez. She was there. Everybody was in on it. Jesse, who works there as well, who also worked on our union broadcasts, helped me out with that. So
you propose?
They had all these beautiful I went to the art director there, who was fantastic, who's still there. They had these all these beautiful graphics. They gave Tori a tour of the studio. Of course, then I proposed. It said, will you marry me, Tori? The pictures are up on my Instagram somewhere. And
I'll have to look. Yeah. I'll have to look for that. If she didn't say yes, that would have been the big story on Action News. If she said no,
that would have been That would have been.
And here,
not just the big story, the lead story.
Tell you what,
right?
Show this to your wife. It's a vintage Channel 6 microphone flag.
I remember when you were on there a lot, my friend. I remember
that goes back a long time. Dave, what can I say? I love your work. I'm a big fan. I love your versatility. You do it all and you do it well. I still owe you lunch, and I hope hope we can do that one day soon. I can't thank you enough for doing this, Dave. Thank you very much for joining me, and we got to do this again soon because we've got a lot more to talk about.
Appreciate the invite. Maybe lunch will be challah French toast, and you don't owe me anything. I always tell you that. And thank you so much for having me on. Good luck on this adventure as well. This is amazing. Love hearing all the talented men and women that you have on here. And thanks so much for watching this conversation. Had a lot of fun.
Thanks, Dave. So did I. And I'm going to take you up on that challah French toast, all right? And thank you for watching episode 3 of the Philly Sports Convo. We'll see you next time. Stay connected with us on social media. Join our Discord community and grab merch from our shop. The Philly Sports Convo is a Blue Eye Visual production.